Good evening, everyone. Welcome to 2024. We're second week into the year and optimistic about 2024. How are you feeling, Mike?
I am well. Good to be back after our break, our holiday break. You know, good, pretty good holiday time. It went by very fast. I had a bunch of time off from work. Just kind of laid low, didn't really do anything too crazy. But yes, bid farewell to 2023 and hello to what is hopefully a good new year, Mr. Hill.
I'm optimistic, man. There's a lot of you know, things
Mm.
going on that are hopefully going to turn out pretty well. So I'm looking forward to getting into the year. And it's always nice to have some time off from work. It's also
Mhm.
nice to start getting back to the grind again too, which is always nice.
Yes, definitely going to be a busy January at the old salt mine for me, I'll say for sure. But yeah, you watching anything as of late?
Well, nothing new, but
Mm.
really enjoyable older stuff that I got into recently.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, so Tina has not seen Terrified or When Evil Lurks. So
Okay.
we watched that recently, just this past weekend. And
Mm.
I tell you what, man, I like it even both of those films I like even more on repeated viewings.
Nice. I need to watch Terrified. I watched the very beginning of it, and then I don't know, something happened. I had to stop it for whatever reason. I didn't go back to it, but I do plan on going back to it because I myself have been watching some older fare. The other night I watched John Carpenter's The Thing again.
Yeah, they're shorter with it, like it was an older movie too. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, and you can't go wrong with The Thing,
Oh,
obviously. Um, Good winter movie, we're in winter times. It's probably arguably the greatest wintertime horror film. And out of curiosity, I was like, okay, so I know this was a bomb back in 1982. I mean, I was nine, and I didn't see it in the theater, obviously. Um, but by the time I saw it on VHS, it was, it fucked my little head up, personally. But I was like, okay, so why did this bomb? And I did a little, preliminary deep dive, and it's like, well, they put it out in the summer. It was out against Raiders of the Lost Ark and ET, and like 1982 was basically the wrong time for the movie, and they put it out in the wrong time of year. And also, one of the biggest reasons, according to a few articles, is that it was too much for 1982, like visually, for like a mainstream, like the audience was like shocked by the special effects and like, you know, bewildered by it. They're like, honestly, like probably before that, in a mainstream horror movie, like what what was even close to that? I mean, this is before Day of the Dead. Like Day of the Dead is really like intense and over the top, but that's like 85. This is 82. So I almost feel like I kind of got what some of these articles were saying, where it was like the world might not have been ready for this just yet. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, if you think about it, probably the only movie that comes to mind that's being as intense as that is maybe The Exorcist or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And that's like a decade removed. And I think they were just kind of saying culturally there was nothing like this going on. Like they had, like Poltergeist was a hit, but Poltergeist is pretty far away from the thing. And also they were talking about how bleak and depressing the thing was and how like movies weren't that much of a downer, which is again probably true if you're going up against E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, it had things stacked against it. But of course, the thing goes on to rule the day because it is regarded as one of the greatest horror films, sci-fi horror films of all time. So every dog has its day.
I also watched Prince of Darkness because I saw
Hmm.
that they just put a bunch of Carpenter's films on Shutter, and
Mhm.
arguably Prince of Darkness. I go back and forth between that film and The Thing as being my two favorite Carpenter movies. So, that's I'll probably probably this week we'll probably watch The Thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, dude, that it's those two films, top of the line for him.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then totally not horror related is I've been binging Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Ah, great stuff.
Yeah,
New
yeah.
season coming soon.
I've only been like I've only been like a peripheral fan of that.
Hmm.
But and the new season starts this year. There's in the
Hmm.
final season. So
Yeah.
Tina's a huge fan and she was like, you need to watch this because it's funny. And she's like, there are aspects of your personality that remind me of Larry David. And I'm like,
Yes, I could
interesting.
see that as well. I could.
Because she's like you hate everybody and you're
Mm.
like neurotic about so many things. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. So
Yeah, he has Scandato aspects as well of myself and my brother John, definitely. You know, I totally, at least I could, am not afraid to say I see some of Larry and myself as well. But honestly, what makes the show a hit and what makes him as a character a hit is that he lives in everyone, Mike. Wouldn't you agree?
oh, definitely. Yeah. And just the whole vibe of that. Susie Green is my favorite character though, honestly.
Oh yeah. So great. So
Yeah.
great. Like yeah, everyone is kind of like putting forth like their A game, even like the smaller characters or even a guest character. It's just like everyone's having fun.
The thing I would like to know some feedback out there, like, that to me, even though this takes place in LA, it's
Mhm.
like a very New York film, New York series. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah.
I wonder if it hits with non-New Yorkers as well as it hits with people from the tri-state area. That's the question I have to the listeners out there.
It kind of I would My fast answer would be yes because of the show's success, but I see what you're saying. Like I think it's quite possibly its biggest admirers are the people in Cali and New York. I mean, you know what I'm saying, or the Northeast, or in
Yeah.
California. Um, but that is a good question. Like, what does the average Joe from Minnesota think of Curb? And look, obviously, it's got a wide appeal. It's a very successful show, and you know, it's a branch of the Seinfeld family, which was one of the most successful TV comedies of all time. But I see what you're saying. Like, I feel like some people were probably maybe not as into its humor, right?
Well, the humor itself, man, if you think about it, I mean, you and I know people like Larry and Susie.
Yeah. Hmm. Oh yeah, totally,
That's
totally.
we're like not even removed from that world of that type of person. That whole cultural thing is like in our everyday life for the most part. And
Yes.
someone from like Illinois or something like that, might or Tennessee or something like that,
Hmm.
they might think it's funny, but they don't have that personal connection to it. Which I guess that's what I'm trying to bring up.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree. But yes, listeners, if you're fans of Curb and you're not from our neck of the woods, give us your thoughts on Curb. It's intriguing. We're intrigued by it. Um, but yeah, aside from that, I watched the first episode of the original V miniseries, Mike.
Okay.
Episode one from back in '82, I guess, '83. I forget what year V came out. And look, the memories of that as a kid are a certain, place and time, and like how hard that kind of hit as a kid. Like it was kind of like intense and cool. Watching it now, it's like it's okay. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong; it's enjoyable. But the big looming, presence of it to me that I didn't see so much as a kid is about like authoritarianism and
Yeah.
like fascism. Like it's like really there, that message, like the fear of, all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty heavy in episode one, of the original. And and then tonight I watched earlier today, I'm sorry, I watched episode one of the O's one with the lovely Morena Baccarin. And that is definitely far less of like, you know, almost like a 1938, the coming of Nazis vibe. That's like a very different kind of vibe. It's definitely like again, authoritarianism thing. but it's definitely not as heavy-handed as like that OG 80s message. They're different animals, those two series.
Where did you watch these? Do you have like a Blu-ray set or they're streaming somewhere?
Okay, the O's one is free on Tubi, but I did plunk down a few bucks to watch episode one because I wanted to just kind of go back and watch that very first episode again of the 80s one. I had to pay for that one. Was it
Sure.
Amazon? I can't remember, but um it was cool to check out actually. It's the 80s one is, it aired on NBC back in the day, but it is not on Peacock, unfortunately. Yeah.
Anything else you checking out?
That is really about it. For tonight's episode, I had the pleasure of seeing it back in 2023, so I didn't need to do the catch up for tonight. But tonight's was on my honorable mentions. So and of course, before we roll into that, um, we want to do the calls or the plugs first.
What's the plug for our brothers, Chrisman brothers?
Mhm.
Things off. We've got Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. And though Necromaniacs is a horror podcast, we are not in competition with Horror Wolf 666.
No.
There's no competition. We all push, pull, and pull for each other to do well. Brandon's show is an interview show. So he interviews people, filmmakers. Sometimes we're on the show, to talk. So it's
Mhm.
like we're covering the whole spectrum of the horror film and fiction, all that. Movies, interviews, and then we handle talking about films. Great.
Right.
And then who do we got on Tuesday? I'm starting to get a
Uh,
little antsy because I haven't gotten my fix on Tuesdays, but go ahead. On
yes.
Tuesday.
Man, I gotta tell you, I am jealous of this man's holiday break here. It could be one of the longest holiday breaks I have seen a mortal man take in the history of
You know,
holiday
you
breaks.
know, you know how they do it in Europe, bro. It's different
Yes,
there. You know what I'm saying?
damn, I'm so jealous of these Euros. But although he is not a native Euro, of course, I'm talking about Jackie Smith's Into the Necrosphere podcast, which I am jumping at the bit, chomping at the bit for it to return, not jumping at the bit. That would be something I just made up. Um, which comes to you on Tuesdays and is the premier metal podcast for all things heavy, really heavy, not like, Seven Dust heavy or, Sleep Token heavy. We're talking really heavy. So yeah, that's coming at you every Tuesday, and I imagine it returns perhaps very soon in January.
Really missing that Tuesday slot, honestly,
Mm.
Yeah, you see him on Instagram and he's like on safaris, he's like surfing and it's
Yeah,
I'm jealous actually. It's here in the Northeast, it's like snowing today and I gotta work, that kind of stuff.
I know we're very jealous, but it's a good jealousy. It's we're jealous with a smile, Jackie.
So Wednesdays we got Everything Went Black, which is my that's what started this whole thing for me.
Hmm.
And recently I just had Cheyenne on as a guest to talk about the new Tribex record,
Nice.
Eloa Burns Out, as well as his a multitude of other things that dude has going on. And that was always a pleasure to catch up with Cheyenne. There's a second appearance on Everything Went Black, by the way.
Yeah, I want to check out the episode that he just put out, maybe yesterday or was it today? Um, yeah, man. Welcome addition to the Horsemen.
Oh yeah, interesting guy. And
Coming.
just real quick on the aside, I just recently was on another my second favorite metal podcast. I had an appearance on the Heavy Hole podcast. So definitely check that out. Big Will, good guy. I've been a huge fan of all of his bands that he's done. Of course, Reeking Aura
Mhm.
and Artificial Brain. Those are great bands. And he's doing a killer job as well. And just recently I was on there. And you guys please go check it out.
Excellent. Coming to you on Thursdays while you're listening to it right now. It is the Necromaniacs podcast, the horror podcast, folks. Hitting that 10-year anniversary next month. How about that,
Right.
Mr. Hill? Yep.
Yeah.
10 years of Necromaniacs. And we have listeners who have been aboard for the 10 years. And we're very grateful for you. And of course, all the listeners, newcomers alike. And on Friday, we have none other than my flesh and blood, Mr. John Draper with Spitball Media. They even changed their little graphic on the pods, Mike. It's this cool little new Spitball Media graphic. I don't know if you caught it.
I noticed that. I know that's definitely cool.
Yes, yes. Saturday, take a break. But Mike, who do we got Sunday?
Paul Hikara brings us Soul Knox, which is focused on the darkness emanating from the center of the universe. It's all things dark, esoteric, macabre, weird. And Carl and I are continuing our collaboration, Darkness Weaves, which explores the work of Carl Edward Wagner. We shift off each month on who hosts the show. And this coming month, it's going to be on Soul Knox.
Excellent. And there you have it. But wait, there's more, right, Mr. Hill?
That's right. Don't touch that dial. We
No.
have Iblis manifestations coming at you as well. Pretty much, you got to keep your eyes and ears open. Episodes come at exactly the right time, and that's brought to you by Cheyenne, our brother.
That is right. There you have it. The horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. Please hit those subscribe buttons on not just our podcast, of course, on all of these fine podcasts. Right, Mr. Hill?
Right. And of course, now this brings us to the phone calls. We have the Necro
Yep.
phone,
Mhm.
and that is 908-913-0782. 908-913-0782. Give us a shout. Tell us what you're, how you feeling. If you've got any recommendations, all that kind of stuff. So we got 2 calls this week. And starting off, we got Steve.
Hey, Mike, and Jeff. This is Steve. I know Mike Hill might know me as Zerma's House Online. You know, we've had the opportunity to talk in the past. I appreciate that. Long-time listener, been there from the beginning. I went through the Metal Matters and Gimme Radio, and definitely been following the Horsemen, and gives me something to kind of look forward to while I work graveyard shifts. So I appreciate that. Thank you. As far as movies go lately, I was wondering if you've done anything on Takashi Miike, Japanese director. My favorite movie by him is probably Imprint. He was on one of those Masters of Horror collections. He's done auditions.
Hey, Steve, thanks for the support.
And if you have and I missed it, I apologize.
The Metal Matters thing was fun while it lasted,
recently,
man. A lot of good times doing that.
One,
unfortunately, the
like
whole
low budget
Gimme Metal platform
I
is
found it entertaining.
over with now, and that was a lot of fun too. That was something that I used to DJ at twice a month. I had a show on there as well as podcasts and a lot of good times with those guys.
Yeah, definitely. And I brought it up before. Mike and I did an excellent deep dive on the Typo Negative debut, Slow, Deep, and Hard, that I feel like you can still find out there somewhere. It might even be on like YouTube or something. But yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. Now he brought up something. Well, he brought up a lot of cool stuff, but one thing I wanted to touch on was he brought up
I don't know if you guys
the new Deicide track. Did he mention that?
But there's a movie called Good Boy from Norway.
Have you heard it?
And the director is
I haven't. I didn't even know it came out. When was there a new Deicide track?
And
they dropped it, of course, on Christmas Day. It is called Bury Your Cross. Bury the Cross with Your Christ. It's from the forthcoming album, Banished by Sin. It's coming out sometime in 2024. But yeah, brand new song. There's a video for it too. You missed it, Mike. You gotta check it out.
You guys.
Oh man, yeah, I know. When I saw this, I'm like, man, I got caught slipping on this one.
Look forward to.
Well, okay.
One more thing.
I am a big fan of Deicide. I was at the first show they did in New York in '92 with like Demolition Hammer and Cancer.
Either way,
I found them around 1990 when the first album came out. They're one of my marquee death metal bands. However, Um, I really, really mainly just back the first four records, like a lot of people do. Some people only back the first two, some people only back the first three. I ride hard for the first four, up until, of course, Serpents of the Light. Newer Deicide has been hit or miss. The post Hoffman Brothers Deicide is hit or miss. Now, musically, this is a good track, Mike. It's solid Deicide death metal, but lyrically, and they made a video for this as well. I just feel like, I mean, at this point, they might as well just put out a song, an album called Satan, 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 because everything is just, it's getting a bit redundant. And look, some people might be screaming at me right now because this is what they want Deicide to be. They want redundancy. They want Satan, 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 Satan. Like, you know what I'm saying? Look, I'm not saying they should be singing about the environment. I'm just saying that they could be coming up with a bit more, I don't know if I want to use the word intelligent, but more ways to skin the cat lyrically. You know what I'm saying, Mike? Like, you know,
Yeah,
like,
I get what you're
yeah,
saying. It's like I mean, I back those first four albums, Deicide, Serpents of Once Upon a Cross, Serpents of the Light, Legion. Like those are like I kind of trailed off after Serpents of the Light. Like I was aware of the other records that came out,
yeah.
and I would, of course I go see them live and stuff like that. But like as far as my listening habits, it was really confined to those first few records, honestly.
Now they're kind of on, like, they're kind of doing very well again, actually. Like the last two shows they did in New York were sellouts, and there's kind of like an excitement about them again, which I think is fucking great as someone who's been a fan for over 30 years, you know? And I'm very curious to hear the rest of the record. But the single is good, but you gotta just watch the video, check out the song, Mike, and then let me know what you think and see if you're may or may not be in agreement with what I'm kind of getting at. I mean, I just feel like they're kind of like the AC/DC of satanic death metal. You know what I'm saying? But again, that's kind of what you want. But I guess every once in a while you want a little more. I'll maybe compare it to the last Cannibal Corpse record, which I liked a lot, but I ultimately was actually not over the moon with. Actually, like I felt like, I don't know, like I felt like it was a bit of going through the motions. Um, and like Glenn Benton on those first few records, like he has this voice that's like, he almost had like three voices, like three different kind of like ways that he sang. And
Yeah.
now for the last couple of records, he's kind of it's just this one very heavy voice, deep voice. So I kind of miss like the screams. I miss like the slight spoken parts. Like, and maybe this record will have a little bit more of his vocal dynamics, or maybe it will not, like the last several records have not had. So yeah, I'm a diehard longtime fan, but I think I'm just going to reserve judgment until I hear more. I like the new song. I don't love the new song.
I'm gonna check it out, and I always, maybe, hopefully I'll dig it, and check out the rest of the record. Sounds like, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. But yes, I mean, I love when the listeners throw in the musical question, don't you?
Oh yeah, totally. And I like sometimes when I get caught slipping like this. You know what I mean? I did not even know the
Yeah,
track existed until Steve let me know about it, at least.
right. But hey, they put it out Christmas Day in very, true deicide fashion, which was pretty cool of them.
Yeah. As far as Takashi Miike, man, definitely a huge fan. Imprint is probably my favorite film by him as well. And
Mm. We have not.
ironically,
Oh,
sorry, go ahead,
sorry.
Mike.
I was gonna say, I don't know if we've done a a film though from him, or maybe back in the early days. I feel like no, but not entirely sure.
Yeah, it's been a while. I can say with 90% certainty that we have not done a Takashi Miike movie.
Okay.
And ironically, we're gonna do Trauma. Actually, that's something. If we're talking about the Argento film Trauma, We're going to be
Yes.
covering that. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's coming. And La Petite Mort is the German movie. I never heard of it. Sounds interesting. Of course, La Petite Mort is a French phrase for orgasm. In case you guys
Ah.
the little death. Yeah,
Okay.
the little death. Yeah.
The Little Death. That's right. I figured that it stood for the Little Death, but I didn't know that it had that little extra meaning.
Oh. So yeah, thanks, Steve. Next up, we got Benji from Georgia.
Hey guys, this is Benji from Georgia. With Eli Roth coming up in conversation at the end of the year, it made me think of a recommendation for you guys to check out the Quentin Tarantino podcast. He had Eli Roth on there for 2 episodes last year, 2022, regarding American Giallo. So I figured you guys would find that interesting since you like to hear Eli Roth talk about film and you also like Giallo. And then I also had a question regarding your opinions on what I see as a trend going on with filmmaking. Like indie horror movie guys going off making big studio films that just, I don't know, kind of really aren't that great. Like Ben Wheatley, who I really like as a filmmaker, made the Meg 2. And I think he's making the Meg 3. And then Adam Wingard, who did, You're Next and The Guest, which were 2 really good films that I think anyhow. He made the last Kong versus Godzilla movie and is making I guess it's a buddy cop, Kong and Godzilla versus another big ape movie coming out this year. Just thought your opinions on that. Is it, I don't know, is it like Adam Wingard, good Lord, James Wan going off and making Aquaman, so everybody's trying to pick up indie budget or horror guys that are just confident making movies, but it just seems really, I don't know. I have my opinions and thoughts, but just kind of interested in what your thoughts are. And also a necrophone, is that with a PH or an F? Thanks. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Benji. I did not even know that Quentin Tarantino had a podcast. Were you aware of that, Mike?
You know what? I am kicking myself because I feel like I might have known, but it kind of just went out of my head. And I can't believe that that's not something I've been listening to with fervor, as they say. So need to put that immediately into the Spotify rotation on my phone, or even if he's not even doing it anymore, listen to all the old episodes like immediately.
Literally added it as soon as I listened to this voicemail, I added it. And
Okay.
that's a guy who can talk. He's a real Gacchiadone, that guy. You know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to listening to just blazing through all these episodes. Definitely.
Awesome. But yeah, I mean, I'm a ridiculous fan of Tarantino, but I have missed this podcast, which is a bit of a bummer. As far as his book is concerned, I had been waiting for it to come out in softcover, his book on film. And I think it is finally coming out in softcover like in the next month or so. So I'm buying that right away. I didn't want to I'm trying to stay away from hardcovers when I can. It's this little weird thing I'm doing. So, because I have like, what's a bunch of hardcovers going to be like when I got to move again in mind. So I guess that's kind of smart, no?
Yeah, totally, dude. I'm with you on that. Though I do have a lot of hardcovers, and most of them are currently in storage. And I only plan on moving one more time in my life. So there you go.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Yeah.
geez, life of living in the cities, as they say.
Also, yeah, just to address that interesting question about underground horror filmmakers getting into the mainstream.
Hmm.
Benji mentioned Ben Wheatley, who just did the Meg
Yeah.
2 rather, and he's also doing the Meg 3. So
Mhm.
I'm a huge Ben Wheatley fan. And my 2 cents on this whole thing is like these guys like Wheatley, Adam Wingard, James Wan, like doing these big studio films is almost like having a day job. You know, it's like you
Yeah.
got your job that you go to every day, and then, you know, the things you're passionate about, you kind of do on your own dime. You know, like you, Mike, you and I have been playing in bands our whole lives. That's kind of how it is. You know, we got
Mhm.
our jobs, and then we do the band, you know, and we do all our creative stuff, and you kind of make it work that way. And I feel like that's how guys like, you know, Wheatley, Wingard, and all these guys, they get paid the real money doing these big studio films. I would rather not. I mean, I haven't seen Meg 2. Um, you know, I may or may not check that out, but I'm definitely going to see Wheatley's next film that he makes on his own because I love everything that guy's done. So I don't know if that
Here's
answers the question or not, but you know,
Look, I think, as they say, some of these bigger movies are done by the smaller guys because uh, either A, they got to eat, as the phrase goes. Okay.
yeah,
Unless, look, I don't think any of these people are destitute or anything like that. But the shot at that kind of money is sometimes too much to say no to. That's number one. But number two, I think perhaps some of the bigger studios are looking at them because they bring some credibility or they bring something fresh. But from what I understand in the Meg 2, that is not the case. I heard that it is. I didn't see it. I saw the Meg 1 that I kind of I enjoyed. I actually plan on seeing the Meg 2. But from what I understand, it does not have any of his take on it. Like you're just watching a movie that you think that the prior director directed or that any schmo directed, which is unfortunate. But if they're taking him on for the third one, then that means, well, he either has some good buddies or he did a very good job somehow. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they would keep the same director if he didn't do a good job. Um, I also feel like sometimes these, we'll call them the indie guys, they go back to being indie at some point. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the time, because sometimes that swing is a miss at the bigger film, and then they kind of go back to doing what they used to do. But then sometimes they'll find success on a bigger film. Um, Honestly, I have no shade for any director of a cooler or indie horror movie taking a shot at the big guys. We live in a different world now, and again, I think it's either the studio seeking them out or that director wanting to just see what they could do with a bigger property or more money.
yeah. I think I'm the same way you are. I see it the same way. It's like I just want these guys to have make a living and do well.
Mhm.
And I know, I mean, all these guys are going to go back to doing their own films. It's not like Wheatley is going to be stuck in the Hollywood world forever. I'm sure he's
Mhm.
got scripts that he's going to produce. You know, he just, you know, the more Benson and Moorhead too. I mean, they are indie guys, but they're flirting with the big boys, you know, in Hollywood with the Disney properties, the Marvel properties they're working with. You know, good for them, man. I want to see them succeed. It might even be a scenario like, you know, like Willem Dafoe, the actor, like he'll do like the Green Goblin and then he'll do like Antichrist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a good example of like someone who can live in a mainstream world and in a wacko movie world. Like, not every actor can do that. He can do that. He's one
Like,
of the rare examples. He's a good example.
you'll see him in a Von Trier film and then you see him in a Marvel movie. And it's you know, you go back and forth. And I think that's an awesome way if you can do it. If you can make that work, that's an awesome way to exist in this world, you know.
Mm, totally, totally. But yeah, thank you for the call. Good points, good takes. Yeah.
And Necrophone is with a PH.
Ah, yes. Necro
Yeah,
Phone. That's right. As
yeah,
the standard phone spelling. Yes.
exactly. Nothing, you know, nothing special about it. So, all right, man. So, on to the feature. We did last year's Cobweb, which came out in July of 2023 and appeared on
Mhm.
your honorable mentions list for the best films of 2023.
Yes, I enjoyed this movie. It didn't crack the top six, but I watched it after Halloween. Got heavy Halloween vibes, listeners, and I'm sure if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Um, but I enjoyed it, and I definitely wanted to give it an honorable mention. Um, because again, it's a movie that I think fell by the wayside, but actually has some good, actors in it, and got some Stephen King vibes, got some, like kind of throwback horror vibes to it, and yeah, I think some of the listeners would like it quite a bit.
A lot to say about this movie, actually,
Mm,
and it seems like this ended up on people's lists. Like I remember, so you listen to the other podcasts, the other horror shows I like, people had mentioned this movie either in their top tens or as honorable mentions.
hmm
So I didn't see it until this year. And I just kind of, there's a couple of films I slept on last year, and
mm,
this is one of them. So, just let's run down. So anyway, it was directed by Samuel Bowden and written by Chris Thomas Devlin. Now,
mhm.
he's the screenwriter, was
Yes.
involved in 2022's travesty Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe this
So
is Samuel Bowden's first feature film.
yeah,
His name is on some TV stuff, and like a Batman short from back in 2009. It's looking like this is his first full length film. Yeah. So for
you were
Mr. Bowden.
saying this is the movie to be watched in Halloween. Like all the imagery, it takes place like shortly before Halloween. So yeah, there's definitely that
Oh
aspect to
yeah,
it. It's a Halloween movie for sure.
definitely. It's a lot of pumpkins. It's just a lot of like fall kind of foliage. It's got like a gray look to it, Mike. Would you agree? It's got like a,
Yeah.
darker colors, and you know, it's something that you should throw on October, November for sure.
So let's run down the cast. Interesting
Mhm.
cast. We have Lizzie Kaplan as Carol.
Mhm.
We have the great Anthony Starr as Mark, and we know him from as Homelander in The Boys, and also from the Cinemax series Banshee, which I know you and I
Yeah.
are both fans.
Oh yes, Anthony Starr is from two of my favorite TV things ever. As you said, The Boys and Banshee. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I always like seeing him in stuff. We
Mhm.
have the lovely Cleopatra Coleman as Miss Divine, and we know her from Infinity Pool.
Yes, she's stunning woman, stunning.
Yeah. And then we have Alexandra Dragova as the girl and
Mhm.
Deborah Wilson as the voice of the monster Sarah. So the
Yes.
girl is Sarah.
Yeah,
And
it's one of those deals where they gave the Alexandra plays the girl, but they gave the voice to another actress reminiscent of The Exorcist, right? Yeah.
a couple other people in this film, you know,
Mm,
other kid actors.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, this is like you were saying that it did have like an interesting mix of things going on in this movie. Some Stephen King action for sure.
Yeah.
But it also had that vibe of like those 70s TV horror movies.
Yes, I would
You know what
agree
I'm
with
trying to
that.
say? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like,
downbeat. It's pretty downbeat movie. There's no comic relief here. There's no, you know, there's no montages in this movie.
no.
It's pretty hardcore, no?
Yeah, and not like this has anything, well, it maybe a little bit. People under the stairs or something like that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like there's a lot of likable things here. And most of the movie I think is likable. Um, you get to see kind of like a serious dark dad role at an Anthony Starr, which again, you don't, you see him as like this superhero who's not really a superhero. And then on Banshee was a very different animal as well, but it's, he's playing like a different kind of guy here. And then Lizzie Kaplan, again, you're seeing her play like this mom who's really kind of fucked up, you know. Of course, people know her from like, Freaks and Geeks, and she's a Mean Girls and Cloverfield. I mean, she's been in tons of cool shit. So I've always liked her.
Yeah. Peter is the shy, kind of disturbed kid who's like sheltered by his parents, doesn't have any friends. He's like getting picked on by the kids. And Miss Divine is a teacher. Actually, she's a substitute teacher, right? She's not even like
Yeah.
a permanent. She subs in, and observes Peter as being this kind of outcast loner guy getting picked on by, the kids and all that. And actually one of the picking on scenes is reminiscent of the first Halloween movie with
Yes.
they make pumpkins, it's around Halloween, and the bullies smash his pumpkin just like in Halloween 1. And I was like, "Oh,
Oh yeah,
nice.
that is
Interesting
the
nod."
total nod to Halloween one. Just like kind of the opening of Thanksgiving was it was a nod to Halloween one, right? For
Right
sure.
away, you get this feeling like you go into the family situation assuming that the parents are there or for the kid, that they're supportive, like they're supposed
Yeah.
to be the good. That's like your immediate impression, right? And it slowly creeps up on you that something is wrong and that the situation is not a normal situation. And it's what I found really interesting about this is like the shots inside the house. Like the house is like it's in order, clean, neat,
Mhm.
well put together. But when they cut to the exterior of the house and they pan outward, you see that the house is in disrepair on the outside.
Yes. Yeah.
And
And I
that
thought
there's
that was
like
cool. Hmm.
this incredible pumpkin patch of pumpkins in the backyard, which is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, it would be one of those houses that in a neighborhood similar to, maybe like, because I grew up out, outside the city, I grew up in the city. So there's houses like this. That might be the house of like the weirdo family, or the kids, the local kids would start making up stories about who lives there and that sort of thing.
Yes, I would agree. And that gave me a little bit of those 70s vibes that you're talking about too. You know?
Yeah.
Um, maybe and again, the talking about Stephen King, like reminded me of it a little bit, and just the overall vibe of it with like the young kid, and all of a sudden you realize that the parents are really not who they appear to be. And then later on, there's like the second layer of the parents where, maybe they weren't so terrible after all, right, Mike?
And it kind of goes back and forth, or it hops the fence quite a bit. And
Hmm.
the story, it just has this very moody, brooding sort of bleakness to it,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
you really see Peter as being trapped there with his parents. And
Yeah.
he's having what initially you're perceiving as maybe nightmares, right? And he starts hearing knocking on the walls, and
Hmm.
he's being kind of gaslit by his parents too. They're like, "Oh no, there's nothing." You know what I mean? You're not hearing anything.
Right.
You know?
Meanwhile, he's clearly hearing something. It's clearly legitimate. And his parents are telling him everything is okay. And then, they're drawing pictures in the classroom, and he draws a picture of himself scared in the bed with the words "Help me." Which is what, of course, triggers the substitute teacher, Mr. Vine, into maybe I should talk to the parents. Maybe that's not a good thing.
Yeah, so she takes an interest in him, even though he's she's a substitute.
Mhm.
So the tapping continues, and the next few days he hears a voice of a young girl,
Mhm.
and she's kind of giving him the heads up that his parents are not what they seem, that they're
Yeah.
evil, this whole thing.
Mhm.
And this is another kind of like deception in the film too, because you're like, this is like the young girl version of the thing that lives in behind the walls.
Mhm.
You're like, well, clearly, she's like a victim. You start building up this picture in your mind about maybe the parents are, they abused her or whatever, like something horrible, and banished her to this like pit or whatever. That's this feeling that you're having about this whole thing. And it's like you're just uncertain about what's actually going on, like for part of this film.
The thing is, yeah, you think you have the movie figured out. You think there's a girl trapped in the wall, that the parents might have killed this girl, and that she's warning the little boy about the parents. And you kind of think that's the movie, right, Mike? Like at one point.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the
And
parents
even,
are acting shitty. Yeah.
and the girl, even Sarah, her name, we'll call her Sarah, she even claims that the parents locked her away because they didn't want her anymore, and that they're these horrible people and,
Yes.
bad sort of thing.
That's when she reveals that, surprise, surprise, listeners, she is in fact Peter's older sister Sarah, that the parents did lock away because she was deformed and they didn't want her anymore, and they imprisoned her on Halloween because that was when a girl had gone missing. Um, and apparently, according to Sarah, this girl tried to help Sarah, and then she wound up mysteriously murdered. So it's like, again, you're thinking as a viewer, you've got this all figured out, that the parents are evil, the parents killed that missing girl, the parents imprisoned the daughter, and now they're fucking with their son. And according to Sarah, they want to kill their own son, right?
She like manipulates him into thinking that they're gonna murder him,
Mhm.
but he has to then that he has to strike first. So,
Yeah.
it turns out that he puts rat poison in their food in a very, very harrowing scene where they're sitting at the dinner table and there's this
Yeah.
soup
Mm.
and they're eating the soup, and the father is like, "Oh, son, oh, dinner's delicious, but something tastes different in your soup." And it's like, "Is that cinnamon?" And of course, Peter didn't touch his food,
Mm.
and that's when you realize that something is amiss, and they both react horribly to the rat poison in their food, and the father like painfully dies.
Yes. I mean, the kid, like you're seeing this kid as a victim, and this poor young kid, he has just murdered his parents, folks. Like it's kind of a, like I said, it's dark movie. Like he's killed
Fuck.
his parents. And sure enough, right before the mom dies, like the mom has the poison, but she eventually decides to stab herself. She says to her son right before she dies, as he kicks her down the damn stairs or whatever, uh, don't let her out. So now,
Yeah.
as the viewer, you're like, uh-oh, did this kid just perhaps kill the wrong people? Like, I'm not the, you know what I'm saying? Like, kill his parents in vain? And of course, the answer is, why, yes, he did kill his parents in vain.
Call back to a movie that I know you and I both love is when Anthony Starr's character, the father, is eating the soup and he's like, "Oh, I taste cinnamon or whatever." The little girl who lives down the lane when
Yes.
Buster poisons Martin Sheen with the and he's like, "So there's a subtle taste of almonds in the tea."
Yes. Holy shit. Now, one can argue, I mean, I don't know too much about you know, Samuel Bowden or the writer. Well, except that he wrote a pretty shitty movie. But maybe these guys saw a little girl that lives down the lane, and that was a possible nod to it. If it is not a nod to it, it is a very cool, unintentional nod to little girl who lives down the lane. And I'm this is in a weird way, minus the weird sex stuff. This is almost like a semi role reversal little girl who lives down the lane movie.
A little bit, and that's what I mean. That's why I feel like I had it, and there's a lot to kind of unpack with this film.
Hmm.
And it's like an interesting little movie, in my opinion. So yeah, let's get on with what's going on here, because this is when the true nature of this of Sarah is revealed to everyone, and this is when a whole other thing opens up from my point of view. What's going on here?
Yeah, and the movie is only 88 minutes, but what's funny is that I actually thought that the movie was kind of almost done when it was not done at all at one point. Ever have one of those little moments when you're watching a movie? Um, but yeah, I mean, things get really rolling because sure enough, like he opens this grandfather clock in the parents' room, and Sarah crawls out, and oh yeah, she is a grotesque, disfigured being, and it turns out that yes, she was manipulating her brother to take revenge on the parents for locking her away, because sure enough, she was the one who killed the missing girl, of course, and she was a goddamn menace. So they had to lock this girl away, right, Mike?
They were not showing. I thought it was awesome. Like
Mm,
there was like moments where you saw the shadow and these like eyes, right? And I was like, yeah, that's great. It's just like you see this darkness and then just two eyes come out. And I'm like, they should
yeah,
have.
yeah,
And then when she's
that
like
was sick.
skittering around like a spider,
Mm,
that was the most effective. That's when I think the creature looked great. When you didn't get you got quick glimpses of the creature.
hmm.
When the full creature is revealed, boy, did they fuck up. I think like The
Yeah.
creature looked really, really bad, dude. That's how I have to say that. It kind of took a little bit away from it from the film.
Mm. Um, we left something out. One of the kids who was bullying Peter, um, Peter actually manages to muster up the courage, via his, influence from his sister to push the kid down the stairs. And they actually show his mangled leg, like when he's at the bottom of the stairs, which is actually a pretty cool scene in the movie. Um, but later in this very same evening, this kid shows up, with his leg messed up with all his buddies, right? To fuck up Peter. And like it's basically like they're there to kill him, Mike. Wasn't that kind of, again, pretty dark?
Extreme, man. They didn't want to just smack around a little bit. They were there to kill this kid. It seems to me they had like, they were ready to roll.
Yeah, they have
And of course,
weapons and masks. Mhm.
yeah. And Sarah like brutally dispatches all these kids, and
Yeah,
they definitely go there with the gore, which is cool.
they do, and it's younger kid kind of violence, which I feel like years ago they didn't really dabble too much into, and now it's like anything goes. Because oddly enough, folks, now when 13-year-olds fight, they do want to kill each other now. So I guess it was a reflection of today's society, Mike.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're right about that. Now,
Yes.
this is when another influence hits me. Another thing jumped out at me during this, where there was like the fact that, all right, she was the daughter and she was this monster, made me
Mhm.
think of the Dunwich Horror by H.P. Lovecraft with
Okay.
Wilbur Whately, which is like the son of Yog Sothoth, which is like it was like this the whole Dunwich Horror thing is like the Whateleys are like this redneck family, and like the mother gets impregnated by Yog Sothoth and gives birth to this like monster, and
Hmm.
he, you know, matures to full maturity in like 10 years and that kind of thing. And I was like, man, I was like expecting the movie to go like, because they have Peter who's normal and then you have Sarah who's a monster.
Hmm.
What happened? Like, was it like
Yeah.
Doc Sothoth impregnate the mother? That's like, I was hoping that there was going to be some kind of thing, like some explanation for her monstrosity, but they didn't really reconcile any of that.
No explanation. You're right. That would have been nice. Left out. Um, but yeah, again, that's again where it kind of maybe fails a little. Although of course the very end leaves it open for a potential sequel, which I doubt there's going to be one, but you never know in these days, right? If they could turn something around the cheap. Um, but yeah, that would have been nice because the brother's seemingly normal. And as it turns out, the parents were being wackos to protect their son from their monster daughter. Um, but the thing is, it at one point it almost seemed like Anthony Starr was willing to kill Miss Devine, Cleopatra Coleman, in the house. Um, like like would he have done that to protect the secret of the daughter? Is that kind of what that was?
Too. There's like this monster. Wouldn't you? I mean, I don't know. Like
Hmm.
there were so many things that were going through my head during this movie because lately, my girlfriend's really into true crime, right? So we've been
Hmm.
watching a lot of these like true crime things with like families and abductions and kids being like locked away, and that kind of thing. And like
Hmm.
there's like a weird psychology that goes on with families like that. So I was wondering if this was some kind of like, I don't know. I would have liked them to explore that angle a little bit more in this film because I agree. Like it looked like the father was, to protect the secret of what's going on, was willing to kill Miss Divine. And I'm like, well, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you want have to get some authorities to figure out what's going on, and that's what I mean. Like there should have been some dark secret that they were protecting to go along with the monster daughter.
Which I guess is the dark secret. But as the viewer at that point in the movie, you're thinking he's just like he's the bad guy. Like that's why he's
Yeah,
doing that. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
he's right, right. So
It
yeah,
was a little
I mean,
confusing.
yeah, a little confusing, but by the end, it's kind of revealed. So as Mike said, the sister monster pretty much does in with all of his the bully and all his acolytes in the house, and they're all killed. Miss Divine makes her way to the house, right, and attempts to help Peter escape, but she's also attacked by Sarah. Peter manages to finally take his sister down by grabbing her hair, and it manages to imprison her into the pit again. And she warns him that she will eventually escape and she'll always haunt him. And the movie ends like it's kind of a bleak ending though. The kid killed his parents. Is Miss Divine dead? Or
Miss
not? Like,
Divine, she makes it out alive. Miss
she
Divine,
does.
Miss Divine.
Okay, so she's alive, right? All of his friend, bully, whatever, they're all dead. His parents are dead, and he's just left alone as like a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old. And you know, I like this movie. This is why the movie made it an honorable mention. Like it left, it left an impression on me, Mike.
Yeah, it was a good little movie, but I didn't love it though, but I liked it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
There was a couple things. I didn't like the monster at all. I think they should have kept the monster in the shadows, shown less, you know, um, not how to do, you know what I mean? I just thought the face was no good.
Yeah,
I was,
hmm, she
yeah,
was like spider-like, but not a spider, right? Like she
yeah,
was spider-like, like hence the name Cobweb. Although the name
yeah,
is it's a cool name for the movie. It's what do you think?
yeah. It's a great name for a movie. I would like to have gone and, I don't know, maybe this is like to find out why she's a monster. You know what I mean? Like that's like really,
Hmm.
it's like because it's like just the luck of the random genetics that she turned into this monster. Like I would like to have heard to have known what actually happened. You know what I mean? Like I would like to know maybe like some creature came down from the out of space and like impregnated that kind of thing. Like some kind of like even a movie like Extra, explains why there's a monster. And this
Mm,
movie in this day and age, I would like to know the reason why she's a spider monster. Not just
mhm.
like, oh yeah, that's our daughter. She's a monster. We put her in a pit. That's
Fun
and
fact.
yeah,
Yeah, I hear you, man. I just, you know, would have been nice.
yeah. So what was a
Uh,
fun fact that you had?
the,
You had a fun
the
fact?
I do have a fun fact. This movie was shot in Bulgaria, of all
Really?
places, in November of 2020. Kind of looked like, any town USA, though, right? I mean, the set at least.
Wow. Yeah.
Now that would put this pretty heavy into the pandemic. I think at that point, the restrictions over there in Bulgaria were probably a bit lax, I guess, huh?
I would imagine so. You probably could have got away with a lot more over there. You know,
Mm,
there's a couple films that were shot in Bulgaria during the pandemic, I think.
right, exactly. But it's cool though. It actually had a limited theatrical release in the summer in July of this year, and then it came out on all digital formats in August with its official Blu-ray and DVD release on September 12th. I believe did you see this on Hulu? Where did you see this? Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean it's it's out there making the rounds, so to speak, on the digital platforms. It's not like a Shutter exclusive or anything. Although I feel like it would have fared well on Shutter. No,
Yeah, yeah, this seems like a Shutter, like an exclusive.
definitely. Um, so what would you rank this on our Necromaniacs score of 1 to 5?
I had a hard time really deciding because, like I said, I thought it was a nice movie. I thought it was good. There were things about it I liked, but there are things I didn't like about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the question of will I watch this again?
Mm-hmm.
And it's unlikely I'll seek this movie out again. So I'm going to give it a 3.5. 5.
You know, that's what I'm giving it a 3.5 because it's worth seeing. And
Yes.
it has that extra mark for, I think it has some originality, and it's got like a vibe, you know. It's not a 4-star movie. It's definitely like a 3.5 movie. It's solid. We'll see what the director does. I mean, it just has some ideas that should have been maybe fleshed out a little more, right?
It was a little underbaked.
Hmm. Underbaked. Yes.
Yeah. It's like when your macaroni is like a little too al dente. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Agree. Agree. I recently had some spaghetti that was very overcooked, but it was still enjoyable. But it was rather overcooked. It was not al dente at all, actually, I'll say. But I enjoyed it nonetheless, as an Italian. Oh my God. But yeah, listeners, check this movie out. It's worth seeing if you haven't seen it. 100%.
Yeah, definitely let us know what you think about it too. In whatever method, messages or whatever. Let us know what your guys' take is on this movie as well. I'd be interested to see what people have to say about it.
Yeah. So we're at the beginning of 2024, and normally, if you're a longtime listener, we tend to roll out some of the golden oldies in the beginning of 2024 because the newer stuff hasn't really hit yet. So what you'll probably hear in the coming weeks is some older fare, or like tonight, movies that we happen to miss in 2023, right, Mike?
Like we kind of let the cat out of the bag earlier that you and I are going to be doing trauma like over the next couple of weeks. So that's going to be one
Yes.
of the next few episodes be trauma. And Jeff and I have been talking about doing some older stuff too.
Cool. Yeah, Dario Argento's Trauma. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Or if you want to wait to hear the episode, you could do that too. It's one of Dario's rare American shot films, shot on location, of course, in America. It's got his lovely daughter, Asia, in it. Or if you wish to pronounce her name Asia, you wouldn't be wrong either. Both, pronunciations are good. But yeah, it's a cool early 90s fare, a dark time for horror. But yeah, look forward to that episode nonetheless.
Well, I let everyone know I'm excited that I got my Blu-ray of Della Morte Della More, which just came
Mm,
out. And
nice.
that was like this is the third version of the film that I so it's but this one's like a deluxe edition that who the hell put it out? Severin put it out?
I think so. Either Severin
Yeah.
or yeah, Vinegar Syndrome, but I think it's Severin. But um, speaking of Blu-rays and DVDs, and we could probably close on this. Sad news, folks. Best Buy has taken down and taken out all of their Blu-rays and DVDs as of this week. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah.
Mm. End of an era.
Yeah, man. Like, yeah, what are you gonna do, man? Well, does Walmart still carry Blu-rays?
Yes, they do. Walmart, I
Yeah.
believe, still does. I mean, look, you support your Vinegar Syndromes, support your, Severins, support your Synapses, Uh, there's still Amazon, and as my buddy Mark reminded me, there's still Barnes and Noble, who has a robust Blu-ray section, and they have those wonderful Criterion sales, a few times a year. Um, all hope is not lost. But I will say this: there was once upon a time where I was in a Best Buy almost every week in the O's to pick up something new, because they had a lot of cool shit and they had exclusives, and you know, it was a glorious time at one point for Best Buy. But I think they decided that they were not generating that much money at all on these bad boys. So they bid farewell to physical media.
Yeah, as some of you guys know, I'm going to be out on the road next month, and one of my favorite things to do is to stop in the middle of nowhere at a Walmart or a Best Buy and buy
Mm,
Blu-rays,
mm,
box sets, like things like that. So
mm.
now I guess we're just down to Walmart, you know.
Yeah, and I think Target, but like Target's section is really small, and but you know, I, I, I love my collection, and A lot of this shit is not on any streaming services. So, you know, if I were you, I would hold on to my physical media. That's my advice.
Della Morte Della More is or is it
Yeah,
Shudder,
Mhm.
Arrow,
Right.
so
It's,
just
you
to
know,
confirm, that is a Severin release. So if you want to go to
Yeah.
Severin and pick that bad boy up, I would highly recommend checking that out. It's probably one of my favorite. It probably is my favorite Michele Suavi movie. So yeah,
Mm.
definitely check it out.
Awesome. Would be nice to see him return to making a horror movie. I don't think it's going to happen, but be interesting to see him take a swing at a new movie.
I would welcome it.
Yes, yes. And I believe there's a new Dario documentary coming. I don't know if you heard about that. So looking forward to that this year.
Check that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you next week. Take care now.
Take care, everybody. See you next time.
Good night.
To walk the night, to feel no love, to know the touch of another kiss, nevermore. To walk the